Hello again, Athish Gaming here with my latest video on TBC, and this one is, why is the meta comp meta? The answer isn't just because. So, TBC is about balancing out boss debuffs, raid buffs, and party buffs. This was before the great homogenization of classes, so there are still lots of unique buffs that each class brings, and fitting them all together in a way that optimizes your damage and survivability is going to be key. So the group 1 is your melee slash tank group, and generally supportive melee. The central buff that this party is built around is Unleashed Rage and Wind Fury. The free spot in here can either be a Fury Warrior for damage on cleave fight, or a Rogue for 2 times physical interrupts and potentially improved exposed armor. The raid buffs that you get out of this is 4% physical damage, 3% crit to everyone, and Sunder armor, though this is replaced by improved exposed. The reason why this party synergizes together is that everyone here uses melee attack power, so that's Battle Shout. Everyone here uses attack power, so that's Unleashed Rage. Everyone here is a weapon class in melee, so that is Wind Fury Totem. And the addition of Commanding Shout can help smooth out spikes in damage that you'll take as being melee. Your group 2 is going to be your physical DPS pumper group, and the central focus of this group is Grace of Air, Inspiration, Leader of the Pack, which all synergize together. Each one stacks on itself. If you aren't running a Rogue or Fury, then you have a third BM Hunter in here instead of Survival, and you move the Survival to Group 1. So the key buffs that you get out of this are Improved Hunter's Mark, which is a buttload of AP for your melee, and Exposed Weakness, which is a buttload of AP for everyone. And really the key element of this is the Beastmaster Ferocious Inspiration. So Ferocious Inspiration is 3% increased damage to all party members, including pets, for 10 seconds after your pet crits. These stack, so you can have up to 2-3 Ferocious Inspirations on you, and each one has a separate 3% buff. Combine this with Unleashed Rage, which increases the pet's attack power as well. Leader of the Pack, which makes pets more likely to crit, and the hunters more likely to crit and apply Exposed Weakness. And lastly, Grace of Air. So Enhancement Shamans would rather drop Grace of Air and just have Wind Fury on their weapon than have drop Wind Fury Totem and have Wind Fury on their weapon. It's redundant. So in this group, you're dropping Grace of Air. Feral Druids don't benefit from Wind Fury, they can't proc it. So Grace of Air is the best totem for hunters, it's the best totem for feral, and it's the best totem for enhancement. Your group 3 is your Warlock group, or caster DPS, and the key element of this is pumping up your Warlocks, making sure that they can do maximum possible damage. And the way you do this is by giving them Moonkin Aura, Totem of Wrath, or Wrath of Air, and Totem of Wrath, which is 8% spell crit, 3% spell hit, and 100 plus spell damage. The reason why this is really good with Warlocks is that improved Shadow Bolt, whenever it crits, increases the damage of further Shadow Bolts. So if you have a lot of Warlocks with a lot of crit, then they are constantly applying and consuming this buff, which amps up their damage even more. As far as good raid buffs, this has some of the most crucial ones. Improved Fairy Fire from Balance is 3% melee and ranged hit. That's a massive amount of hit that your group can just ignore on bosses, so it funnels out into being a lot of extra stats in your raid. Insect Swarm is a decent boss hit reduction. It just reduces the damage the boss deals. And of course, Warlocks, they bring their curses. Curse of Recklessness is, I'm sure you're familiar, a big armor reduction. You may not use it on every boss depending on damage, but on the bosses where it is good, it is good. Group 4 is kind of a hybrid caster healer group, primarily organized around being either mana hungry or not benefiting from other groups quite as much. The free spot here can either be a Holy Priest or a Resto Shaman. Resto Shaman brings a little bit more damage. A Holy Priest is a bit more flexible as far as a healer, as far as tank versus AoE heals. This group, however, is stuffed full of raid buffs and party buffs. So the big one is the Affliction Warlock. brings two very important buffs, which is Curse of Elements, which Curse of Shadows has been removed. It's all baked into Curse of Elements. So having this person provide Curse of Elements will provide 13% bonus damage to these and reduce the resistances of the boss. Huge improvement. Shadow's Embrace is not to be slept on. It's an affliction talent which reduces physical damage by 5%. This is a huge benefit to both your tanks not getting gibbed and to your healer's mana not having to uprank their heals quite as much. So huge benefit that the Affliction Warlock brings. Then we have the Shadow Priest. The Shadow Priest is bringing 10% shadow damage and 5% to all spell damage. Huge raid damage bonuses in this group. And as far as the actual party buffs, you have Vampiric Touch and Vampiric Embrace, which are health and mana restore. This really helps your Arcane Mage and your pumping healers put out more healing and more damage. Combine this with Mana Tide Totem, and the fact that everyone is a caster means Wrath of Eric gets the most impact. And lastly, we have Group 5, the Miscellaneous group. This group is not really formed around anything super synergistic. They don't bring that many raid buffs. They're just a bunch of classes that you'd like to have or bring other kinds of buffs. So this is where you can pick up your improved Blessing of Might. The Druid tree form is good. The Protection Paladin obviously will need a lot of healing, and having some additional healing for this group to keep them alive isn't bad. Everyone here benefits from Wrath of Aaron Mana Tide, so that's good for the Shaman totems. But otherwise, this group is kind of the misfit group. You're putting all the classes that don't necessarily fit well with the other groups in here. And lastly, the required raid buffs. And I didn't mention these because they can be provided by multiple members, but you will want to have all of these in your raid, and you will want to have a minimum of 3 paladins to provide at least 3 out of 4 of the blessings. So you have Prayer of Fortitude, Gift of the Wild, obviously, and then the greater blessings, you'll want to have Salvation Kings on everyone, and then if they're melee or ranged, determines if it's Wisdom or Might. And then lastly, Arcane Brilliance. You only need 1 mage to provide Arcane Brilliance, but it's a benefit to all your casters. They can go longer before having to use regeneration. It's extra crit. There's just solid buffs, but once again, none of these are required to have a person in a specific group, and they can be provided by multiple members. The Boomkin can provide Gift of the Wild, for example, or the Resto Druid. Prayer of Fortitude can be the Shadow Priest or the Holy Priest. You get the idea. So basically, this is why the meta is the way it is in TBC. You're stacking your raid buffs, including all of the important ones, and then you're stacking each group around the synergistic buffs, usually built around the Shaman. The Shaman is the baseline of every good group, and you want to make sure that their totems are being put to the maximum use possible. So if you have any questions, comment below. Otherwise, I hope you learned something from the video. Peace.